Welcome to Chatting
Yeah.
with Chad. Thanks for joining me. I'm very excited to have you here because the first and foremost, everybody's question of the year is, what's elder law? What does that mean?
So it's a relatively new area of law. When Ohio changed some rules back in 2008 and again in 2013, it was kind of adds not only to the estate planning and probate part of the traditional estate planning, but it adds the asset protection part of it, which with the baby boomers and people living longer has become a growing area of law, because once you need long-term care, there are so many ways and options that you can protect your assets without having to lose your entire life savings in the last year and a half of your life.
You know, it's interesting. We have clients, I'll have this conversation all the time. When we've surveyed folks in the past, we've done research reports and things like that. One of the number one fears of retirees is what happens if I end up going into a nursing home. They've known someone or had a loved one that they saw the house had to be sold. Then they ended up broke. They were paupers when they passed. Nothing went to the kids. So they saw people that worked, saved, sacrificed their entire life to give it all to a nursing home in the last year and a half of their life. And people will come in and be like, I don't want to be that person. I don't want to have that. And we know that right now, 100 people turning 100 is one of the largest growing segments of our population.
Agreed.
So, you know, when I think about this, now I got to pause a second. Jennifer Sitterley, you've got your law practice. You're brand new to law. You've never even heard of the law in Ohio, or is it running the blood?
Yeah, I'm third or fourth generation attorney. I tried to get away from it, and I was an accountant for a year, but here I am. Yeah, my dad, my grandfather, his father-in-law, we're all attorneys here in Fairfield County.
You know, it's funny, we were talking about this off camera, but we met back when I first got into the business. You were working, I think you were like a secretary for your dad's firm, or greeting or helping, doing some paraplant type things. And yeah. I was brand new and came in. I was like, hi, I'm Chad. I'm the guy down the hall, because we were both in the Chase Bank building. Here it is, probably 15, 20 years later, and it's kind of neat to reconnect. So, well, let me ask you a couple things. So you have a couple certifications. One of the things that I know is that when you got certified, and probably even now, elder law, there are a lot of people that say, well, I do planning, or I do legal documents. But elder law certifications, there's just not very many people that actually have that certification, because you've announced to the world, this is my specialty. This is all I'm doing. This is my focus.
Yeah, agreed. Like I said, it's only been around maybe 10 or 15 years, which is one of the reasons. But another reason is it's like taking another bar exam. To get those certifications, not only on the national level, but the Ohio level, you have to sit and, study for 3 months and pass this really hard exam and get referrals from your peers. So they have to vouch for you and say that, yeah, you kind of know what you're doing. So, I mean, it's a lot of work to get that certification. And that's why right now I think there's only 24 of us for Ohio State Bar Association, and 36 by the National Elder Law Foundation in Ohio.
You know, and that you mentioned something that's kind of a big deal. When it's one thing to be recognized for a specialty in the public, it's another thing to be recognized by your peers. So I know that your number one lead source for new clients are other attorneys that are in the area. So that's a huge compliment, and kudos to you for that. So let's talk a little bit about elder law. So I have a client that called me and said, hey, my mom's getting ready to go into a nursing home. And I said, okay. Actually, they weren't a client. It was a friend of a client. And they said, is there anything we can do? And I said, yeah, there is. And they go, well, it's too late now, right? We should have had a plan in place before. So what, I like your facial expressions. Yeah, yes, you should have a plan in place. But just because you don't have a plan in place, does that mean, well, now it's too late?
No, and that's the biggest misconception that I see is a lot of people have this 5-year look back in their head, like you have to do a 5-year irrevocable trust. It's the only way to do it. That is one way, but for a lot of people, unless your entire net worth is in real estate, sometimes it's not the best way, because if you try to do a 5-year trust and put a retirement plan in there, you would have a huge tax hit a year later. So when you have a significant amount of your assets in retirement funds, that does not help you at all. And in fact, you might be sacrificing more by doing a 5-year plan than if you just wait and see if you need it. So crisis planning is when you don't have 5 years. In fact, you might have had something happen last week, and it is not too late to do a crisis plan, especially in Ohio, where you have multiple options to do the less than 5-year crisis planning.
Well, let's talk a second about the 5-year, because you've mentioned 5-year twice. I know exactly what you're talking about, but I don't know that all my clients do. Most of my clients should, because I've had the conversation with them, but we may have some people on here that aren't clients. What does it mean, 5-year look back? What does that have to do with estate planning?
Yeah, thanks, Chad. That's very good point. So when someone applies for long-term care assistance from the state of Ohio, because Medicare, a lot of people don't realize they have Medicare, that's their insurance. A lot of people think that covers everything and anything. That's completely the case when you go to the hospital, but after you leave a hospital and you go to a rehab or a long-term care facility, the maximum that Medicare will cover is 100 days. And then you get this nice little 3-day notice that says, hey, we're going to terminate your Medicare coverage for this. And then that's when everyone panics. They're like, wait a second, I didn't expect to get a bill for $10,000 a month. So at that point, if you apply for state assistance, the state will say, well, have you given anything away or gifted anything in the last 5 years? You can't just give away your assets to qualify. So that's what that 5-year look back is. It used to be 3 years, and then they moved it to 5 years.
You mean that if I'm going into a nursing home and the cost is going to be $20,000 a month, I can't just give all my money to my kids and go, oh, I'm broke?
Well, funny you say that. So you can give it to them, but then Ohio's like, well, we're not paying. So that's how that works. They look back and they demand, we want to see 5 years of bank statements, and they'll critique anything over $1,000. They'll say, what's this? Where'd it go? Who's Fred?
What do you mean you needed your gutters replaced? Are you sure you needed them replaced?
Well, not for $50,000. Yeah.
Good point.
People have gotten wise to trying to get around that. And in response, the state of Ohio knows kind of the red flags to look for.
Didn't it used to be a year or 3 years?
Yeah. And it's increased. Now, there was chatter 10 years ago about the 5 years increasing to 7, but they have stopped that discussion because people just moved to other states at that point.
We're out of Ohio. Let's go. Florida. We got a whole flock that's moving towards Florida as is, right?
Mm-hmm. So, well, that's why estate tax is now gone in Ohio, because Florida didn't have it.
That's right. So let's talk a little bit about, so now we understand what the 5-year look back is. So let's go back to someone now says, okay, I'm moving into the nursing home, unexpectedly had a stroke, now can't take care of myself, going into a nursing home. I haven't had the 5 years. As a matter of fact, we were just doing some legal documents. And unfortunately, just a couple weeks ago, we had a client that was doing some legal documents, client's daughter and son-in-law. And over the weekend, a couple weekends ago, the daughter passed away before they even signed the legal documents. It's a good reminder that yesterday's history, tomorrow's a mystery, today's a gift. That's why they call it the present. But someone goes into a nursing home. Now, at that point, one of the things that you talked about was Medicare is paying for some. But how does that work really in regards to, does Medicare actually pay for a nursing home, or do they pay for rehab, maybe in a nursing home facility? How does that work? Oh, she's frozen. Frozen. Nicole, you are on that, right? Or am I frozen? All right. So we're having technical difficulties. Back to Frank. Okay, we got a question. Explain Ohio, now Florida, please. I'll touch on that. So one of the things that she was talking about is the 5-year look back is in Ohio, and it's pretty well adopted among other states as well, that there's a 5-year look back. One of the kickers here, though, is that if Ohio said, hey, we're going to make it a 7-year look back, then that might push people out of the state to go to a state where they don't have the 5-year look back, is what she was referring to, Peggy.
Okay, here we go. There we go.
Yay, there you go. Now turn your phone sideways.
Oh, there we go.
Boom. Just like that.
Okay.
So, Nicole, remind me where we were.
I've never gotten kicked off at my office before. I'm sorry. That storm must be a booger.
No problem. No problem. So, what were we saying, Nicole? 5-year look back is what we were saying.
Yeah.
So now that we understand the 5-year look back, let's talk a little bit about Medicare, because you mentioned, people think that Medicare is going to pick up the bill in a nursing home, whereas Medicare doesn't actually pay for long-term care. However, it will pay for, correct me if I'm mistaken, like a rehab in a long-term care facility, but it's only 100 days, if I'm not mistaken.
Up to, and if they think that, and oftentimes they'll cut you off before 100 days, if they think that progress is not being made. Now that's an old standard and they're not supposed to use that standard, but they still do. So their standard now is if they take the care away, will you get worse? But you won't make it more than 100 days from the qualifying event, unless there's a different qualifying event, then it'll start all over.
Okay, so there is the possibility. So someone's in a car accident, they spend 90 days rehabbing in a facility, they go home, and then they get go out to get the paper, and the Budweiser truck hits them. Now they're back in the hospital. Now that 100 days starts over. But if you go in without the expectation of recovery and coming out, you just switched into a different category, which is long-term care.
Right. Yep. And that covers in-home care, and it covers assisted living through a waiver program or skilled nursing. This program covers all three.
So talk to me for a second about those folks that I've talked to. I mean, I think everybody on here knows someone that's gone into a nursing home, and then they see the house had to be sold. They had to be broke before the state paid for anything, and boom, within a couple years, their estate's gone. When somebody actually, and you made the face like, yeah, we can help. What would be the recommendation, or what would you tell somebody that was going into a nursing home or had a family member? And this is where you mentioned crisis planning or crisis care, which I think we might have even advertised part of that when we were talking about this, but that is a specialty in itself. The crisis care is a much different animal than doing the 5-year planning or the 5-year look back planning. So talk a little bit about what that entails and what that means.
So when you don't have 5 years, or you don't think you'll have 5 years, and you do a wait and see approach, the second thing that you need to look at is whether someone is married or whether they are single, or both spouses need care. Because when you have a spouse, you are almost always 100% protected already, so long as you move the assets to the spouse in the permissible way. So a house is exempt, a car is exempt. IRAs are now newly exempt if you are taking your required minimum distributions. That's a new rule. And if you have more than that, that's above the $30,000 limit, they let you transfer 100% of the remaining assets to your spouse, so long as you promise the state that it'll go to them in the form of an income. So the way to turn an asset into income is to use a special Medicaid qualified spousal annuity. So you can even take 100,000
special products to try to get it out of an asset class and into an income stream, and then kind of doing your magic on that end. But what about the old days? And I've heard stories. I mean, maybe you can tell me or tell me if I'm crazy about this, but I've heard, well, mom's in the nursing home, now we got to get divorced so that we don't lose everything.
Yeah, and that's why they changed the rule. That's exactly right, Ted. Because 10 years ago, that was the rule. They spent down, they impoverished each other, or they'd get divorced. And so the legislature of Ohio got wise. Thankfully, they made a good public policy decision. They said, we don't want to encourage that. That's not what, we don't want to punish the people who did the responsible thing, stayed married, paid into the system, and saved their money. We want to reward those people. So just like most of our laws and their tax code, it's set up to reward the behavior that the legislators decide would be good public policy.
Yeah, it's funny. I remember when I first got into the business having that conversation with a couple, and I said, you know, divorce is an option. And they
Yeah.
said after 50 some years of marriage, it is not an option.
Yeah.
And that's a very, you know, I was just kind of going through and saying, these are options that you have. But for people, we've got a client right now that's been married to his spouse for 72 years. So they're lovely people. They might even be on here, but absolutely, that's not even fathomable. So what should we be looking at? So a lot of the folks that I work with, we have plans in place to cover the 5 years, to do those kind of things. But what would be the direction you would give someone if they know of someone or have relatives, or what would be the guidance you would give them in regards to what they should be saying to them, how they should be giving them some guidance or some coaching in this area?
First of all, absolutely get a really good financial power of attorney, because if something happens to someone and they're worried that, you know, assets might need to be protected, you need to have the legal authority to allow anybody to help you with that too. And I would say more than 90% of the power of attorneys out there do not include the ability to protect assets by creating an irrevocable trust or a spousal annuity. So unfortunately, because this is such a new area of law, the majority of financial power of attorneys, also called durable, do not have that power for agents. So if mom has a stroke, sometimes we don't have the option to do that if no one has the legal authority to do that. So that's number one. But number two, at least find out your options, because Fred down the street or grandma from 10 years ago, completely different rules. You know, it depends if someone's married, it depends if someone's single. You're going to have different circumstances, and it's not one size fits all with this kind of planning.
You know, it's funny you should say that, because 10 years ago, the rules were different. Tomorrow, the rules may be different. And I always I call it the 19th hole talk. Oh no, there's nothing you can do. And people just, okay. The one takeaway I always say is find a specialist. Find somebody where that is what they specialize in, and have a conversation with them. So make sure finding someone like you that has the certifications, that deals with this on a daily basis, is uber important. Now, one of the things that you talked about, or that you mentioned, was saving part of the estate versus saving all the estate. If someone is single and they are going into a nursing home, in their mind, well, I don't have any options. I just have to pay for a nursing home. But the reality is that they could probably save a pretty good portion or a sizable amount of their estate, or at least pass something on to their beneficiaries, to their kids, to the people they care about, or the causes they care about, as opposed to the state of Ohio or a nursing home getting it. What should be a realistic expectation for a married couple versus a single person?
Married couple, really close to 100%. Minus, annuity fees, or if you hire someone like me who can walk you through that calculation, because it's very mathematical. But typically 100% for a married couple, if you know what you're doing. If you don't have a healthy spouse to transfer assets to, my average is probably, depending on income and expenses, but it's over 75% protected.
Over 75%. So even if somebody doesn't do any planning at all, they have the potential to retain and pass on to the people they care about up to 75% of their assets.
Even if they wait until the last minute to do something, yes.
That's incredible. And that number's higher than what it was a few years ago as well. So there's some neat new strategies that I'd like to get more educated on in dealing with you. But that's kind of the secret sauce. That's what it is that you do. I had someone that came into the office, and they were talking to me about another firm in town that had done some work for them. I can tell you very quickly, to all of you who are watching and listening, when it comes to crisis planning, there's one firm in town that I'm going to send you to, and that's Jennifer Sitterley Law. So you absolutely want to use her. I know there's another one in town. All you have to do is ask offline. I will share my opinion. in great detail on that firm. But Jennifer, I really appreciate you being here with us. And what is how can folks get a hold of you? I mean, I think I've got your website here. I want to pop up, but could you tell folks what's the best way to reach you? And also I want to touch on, because one of the things that I think about is oftentimes people do wait till the last minute.
Mhm.
It's just natural. Things pop up. But if they don't wait till the last minute, that's going to be way more advantageous. Would you agree? What a leading
Yeah,
question.
you can protect much more the longer. I mean, the greater the plan, the more you can protect, almost always.
But the key that I want everybody to hear right now is it's not too late. It's never too late. Even if you know somebody that's already in the process with a nursing home or has gone in or went in 6 months ago and they might be in trouble, it's not too late to have a conversation to see if there's, because we're not talking about a couple $100. We're talking just a house. If you think of a $200,000 house, being able to save $175,000 to give to the kids out of a $200,000 house, just think about the savings that could take place with larger estates.
Agreed. Yeah, especially, and people that even have rental properties, a lot of people don't know you put it in an LLC and it's exempt. I mean, just things like that you got to know and make sure it doesn't go through probate. So
yes, and make sure it doesn't go through probate. That's super important too. So are there any questions that I should have asked that I didn't?
I mean, that kind of encompasses the realm of what I do. So you of course can help grow people's investments while they're alive and I will protect them.
Yeah, our job is to preserve, protect, and help our clients to pass on more of what they've worked, sacrificed, and saved so long to get. And it's
Agreed.
through professionals like yourself that we want to have great relationships so that we can specialize in what we do well and then help our clients with other specialists. So I greatly appreciate you being here. And once again, share with everyone your website and a way to reach you. And then I'll talk a little bit about how we're going to share that information as well.
Sure. So website is sitterleylaw.com. The big thing that people miss is how to spell Sitterley. S as in Sam, ITTERLEY, LAW.com. And then calling is always, you'll always reach someone 740-681-1765. Those are the easiest ways.
Excellent. Excellent. So once again, I greatly appreciate you being here, and we will post this video to, once we edit out all of our technical issues, we will post this video on our website. We'll also put a link on our Facebook page, and Jennifer will make sure that you get a copy of this. And we really appreciate you taking the time to educate some of our folks and myself and spending some time with us. And I look forward to working with you for many, many years to come.
Thank you, Chad. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. So, all right, guys, this has been a wonderful session with a great guest, and I hope you all got as much out of it as I did. If you have questions or know someone who may have issues in regards to they don't necessarily have a plan in place, absolutely have them reach out. You can reach out to me, share their information. I'll reach out to them. We'll make sure that they've got the all-star team working on their stuff. So with that, have a wonderful and a blessed evening, and we'll look forward to seeing you again next time.